Welcome to Rex Reviews Godzilla. This is my personal channel where I'm reviewing every Godzilla film in order of release, and today I'm reviewing Destroy All Monsters. I just finished watching this film, and before I go into my opinions, I just wanted to cover a little bit of information about how this movie was kind of received. We see over on IMDb, it's got a 6.4 out of 10, almost 9,000 reviews, which is kind of more than I thought we'd get. On Rotten Tomatoes, 82% from critics, but it's only 11 reviews, and 66% with audiences with 5,000 plus ratings. I have to admit that between these two scores, I lean more in the direction of the audience, but I'll get more into that as we go. I also wanted to talk a little bit about just, some things you might want to know up front. This budget was 200 million yen, which was relatively high for the era. I can't remember what budgets were prior to this, but this movie got a higher budget because it was intended to be the final Godzilla film. I think this was the 20th kaiju film from Toho and supposed to be the Godzilla finale. So they gave it a higher budget. Attendance, it did 2.58 million tickets in Japan. It was part of a continued gradual decline versus prior entries. Invasion of Astro Monster did 3.8. Son of Godzilla did 2.5. Thank God it did better than Son of Godzilla. But it was solid enough on a double bill with Atragon reissue, which I don't know what Atragon is. If you do, let me know. I asked about the Godzilla suit. I wanted to know if the Godzilla suit was new because I really like the Godzilla suit in this movie. It's not entirely new. Apparently, the main suit was the Soshingeki Goji. Fresh, well-proportioned design with defined features. Water scenes reused the older Daisenso Goji suit. I don't know the difference between the names, but I really liked Godzilla's suit in this film, so that's why I asked that. I asked about if there was any other trivia worth noting. Originally planned as the final Godzilla film, big monster ensemble send-off, but success led to more entries on reduced budgets. It is the last film with the core Godzilla Fathers team, which is Honda, Tsuburaya, Tanaka, and Ifukube. I'm sorry, I said those names wrong. I know I did. It featured 11 monsters, and we have another alien invasion plot. So obviously, I've got my notes here on my phone. I even took some extra little videos that I might share with you, pictures and videos of things that I thought were funny during this film. I guess the main thing that I want to start with is that I kind of had my own headcanon for this because this is the film where after two films with Jun Fukawa, or a different director, Jun something, I'm sorry, we have Ishiro Honda coming back for the final Godzilla film. In my head canon, I saw this as the OG director coming back to reclaim his franchise. This is totally made up, by the way. Coming back to reclaim his franchise after the new director had increasingly pushed the Godzilla series in a more kid-friendly, anthropomorphic direction. When I talked about Son of Godzilla, I know some people really like that film, and I don't hate it, but it came off to me very Saturday morning cartoon vibes. Although I really did appreciate that June had a different soundtrack and a different musical score that he wanted to go for, but I think that the lightning behind me is a little bit distracting, actually. Give me one moment. Let me just change that to something a little bit more just a little bit different color here. Let's cut that down a little bit. There we go. I think that's fine. Sorry. Anyway, yeah, I had this headcanon that Ishiro Honda was coming back to, reclaim the Godzilla series and take it back to its roots. And so I was really hyped going into this. Like, I had this story in my head, and I was hyped to see what Ishiro would do now that he's back in control. Obviously, he brings back Akira, the original producer or sound designer for the other Godzilla films. So we get that, that old school original Godzilla music back. Shiro is, back directing, and you can tell that we're back to his directing style. We have a ton of older Godzilla cast members returning to be in this film. No Miss Namikawa, which, it made it, brutal. Where's my queen? But we just have to let that go and move on. So I was excited, and I kind of set my expectations a little bit higher. Now, I should mention that this is another film that I remember seeing when I was a little kid. I know that I watched Destroy All Monsters multiple times, but I don't really remember it that well. And that was the only thing that gave me kind of a bad feeling. I was like, man, for whatever reason, I just don't remember this movie that well. And even as I watched it, and I watched the Criterion Collection version, which is the Japanese version with English subtitles, I really didn't remember much of anything. I remembered Manda, the Chinese dragon that just crawls along and destroys a bridge in the movie, and I just remember that monster because I thought that monster was kind of goofy and really hard to buy into. He can't even fly, he just crawls around slowly, and I thought that was weird. But yeah, I genuinely did not remember hardly any of the human story here. I didn't remember most of the music, even though Ishiro Honda and Akira use a lot of the, your traditional Godzilla movie music. Like, the intro music is very military marching band kind of music, very serious, which I felt set a good tone. But yeah, I remembered almost nothing as I watched this movie. And unfortunately, overall, I do kind of feel like this is a bit of a forgettable Godzilla film for me. And I think that the main reason is because they go back to the main plot of the film being humans versus aliens, with all of the monsters just being like pawns on a chessboard. And it's about who controls the monsters and how the monsters are controlled. And I've just never really been a big fan of that. I think it's also, it takes 30 minutes or more, 35 minutes maybe, before you finally get some monster scenes that are really enjoyable, some good destruction scenes, military fight scenes. There's some surprises towards the end. Unfortunately, I don't feel like they're good enough to save the movie, because the human characters in this movie, for whatever reason, it's really hard to explain, but the human characters and the human drama in this movie is just not up to par with some of the other, versions that we've seen. I think I much preferred Invasion of Astro Monster or Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster over this one, where I felt like I struggled to remember characters' names. I struggled to, kind of keep up with the plot. I actually watched this movie twice. Because I watched part of it and I was so tired and I was having trouble keeping up with it, so I went to sleep. And the next day I watched a little bit more of it. And then this morning I got up early and I said, you know what, let me just start from the beginning, because I really want to give this movie an honest chance, and it just wasn't winning me over. And I think it's because the monsters played such a small part. I think that the part the monsters play isn't that interesting. I think that it really takes too long before it gives you a final battle that's worth enjoying, which I think the final battle of the film is excellent, and I'm not going to spoil it. I'm going to wait till I get there. I'm going to kind of go through the movie a little bit. But overall, it just, I just feel like we've heard this story before. This is the third time minimum that we've heard this story, that there's aliens and humans, and the aliens are trying to take control of the monsters to take over Earth. We've done this a lot. Out of the last 5 films, I think it's been 3 of them, right? Because I think we had Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, and then Invasion of Astro Monster, which I think was my favorite. I thought Invasion of Astro Monster was incredible. And then we had Ibira Horror of the Deep, which I enjoyed for what it was. I think it's a very interesting movie, and it's a bit fun. Then we had Son of Godzilla, which I really didn't enjoy. And now we're back to another alien movie, another aliens trying to take over movie. I don't think we definitely weren't really doing the alien thing in Ibira Horror of the Deep. I don't think. In Son of Godzilla, I don't even remember, man. I'd have to go back to my notes to see what we were doing there. But this is at least the third time we've done this kind of plot, and it's wearing thin on me. And it doesn't help that of the 3 Ishiro Honda films where we've done this, I kind of felt like this was the weakest, honestly. But anyway, let's kind of get into like the actual story of the movie now. I want to talk a little bit. I'm going to try to do this kind of like I did the Son of Godzilla review, where I'm not really going over every single scene like in detail. I'm just going to try to focus on like my overall high level thoughts. One thing that I really had an issue with here, I guess you would call it the cinematography. There was such, like in Godzilla films, and especially in Showa era, we're using so many like miniature sets. And I know this continues on through like Heisei era and stuff like that, but we use so many miniature sets. And I just feel like in some of these movies, they do a pretty good job of covering for the miniature sets. And in some of these movies, it's like glaring. It's like so in your face that these are dolls and these are little toy cars. This is definitely the latter to me. When I think back to like the older Godzilla films, like Godzilla Raids Again, the original Gojira, I really feel like the black and white and a lot of the attacks and stuff being at night really kind of helped cover the flaws in the sets, especially with the background. I don't remember noticing like green screen use or noticing like these, I don't know what you call them when it's just a drawing on a sheet. It's basically just a drawing, just a painting behind them is like the background. I don't know what you call that. I don't remember noticing that so much in the previous Godzilla films, but in some of these more recent ones, it stands out way more. And in this one, it's terrible. And for whatever reason, I don't know why Ishiro Honda chose to do this, but they zoom in a lot on the worst miniature sets, the worst miniatures. They do a lot of zooms on backgrounds that are just drawn or painted on, and they zoom right in on it. Why? I don't know why they did it so many times in this film. Like, I know that I'm watching a Showa era Godzilla film, and I am prepared to, suspend my disbelief and immerse myself in the film the best that I can. But man, I really felt like the film was almost like challenging me. Like how much are you willing to to suspend your disbelief with some of the set designs and stuff? It was kind of rough. The miniatures, like you could see wires more than I remember seeing wires in previous films. Maybe I'm getting better at noticing it, right? Maybe that's what it is. I don't know. But I'm noticing the wires. I'm noticing the backgrounds are just sheets with like drawings on them. I'm noticing the poor quality of the miniatures and the toy cars that they're using more. And then there's things that don't make any sense. Like there's a military fight later in the film where, the military, fights Godzilla. I think it's near Mount Fuji, and they're in tanks. And for some reason, the military in their tanks, they drive right up to Godzilla's feet. They drive right up to his feet and are like circling around his toes, like shooting up at him. Well, what do you think he does? He just steps on him and crushes him. Little things like that, I don't remember feeling so, I don't want to say insulted because that's too dramatic, but I don't remember noticing so many of these, to me, kind of like glaring flaws in the shooting and in like the positioning of Godzilla and enemies and stuff. I don't remember noticing this many bad things about, like, you know, what's going on with like the sets and stuff like that. So I really had a lot of issues with, I guess a lot of this would fall under cinematography, but I had a lot of issues with how this film was shot, especially during scenes with the monsters and combat scenes. Even though we did get some good combat scenes and we did get some good rampage scenes, man, it was kind of rough to sit through, you know, some of the set design. But the film basically, the concept of this film basically is that you now have this, instead of Monster Island, you have Monster Land, and all of the monsters live on Monster Land, and the humans have devised these devices that keep the monsters from escaping. So, like, Rodan can't fly off the island because they use, like, electromagnetic waves, and Rodan doesn't like that, and so he stays on the island. They spray things in the water, like there's like an alarm system basically that goes off anytime one of the monsters tries to leave the island. So if Mothra, who, by the way, Mothra is back to being a larva again instead of like a moth. Why? Like, why do we get this version of Mothra? Especially if they're talking about this is going to be, you know, the final Godzilla film. Why did they go with the poop Mothra? Like, I don't understand that decision, but I will give them points because we do not get any of the weird natives, which I don't hate them, but those twins, those fucking twins, like, I have beef with the Mothra twins. Like, you just don't fucking understand. Anyway, they're not in this movie, thank God. So, you know, I just don't know why we got this version of Mothra. That's weird to me. But if Mothra tries to leave the island, you know, they spray this stuff in the water that, they spray this gas at Mothra that Mothra apparently doesn't like and will not leave the island. Godzilla tries to leave, they spray this mist in the water. Godzilla, it's kind of funny because they have this scene where Godzilla's like, damn it, you know, he's like, fuck, and then he just turns around and goes back on the island. You know, it seems a little weird. You know, these things stick up above the water and spray the water. I feel like Godzilla would just use his breath to make them explode and leave the island if he wanted to. It's kind of weird to me. Like, I don't even know. Like, none of this is really explained, like, how they figured out, like, what repellent to use for each monster. And, you know, these monsters in previous films have been treated like gods, literally. So, you know, a little bit of mist or gas keeping them from leaving the island. You know, I won't say that it was, I won't say that, like, I couldn't suspend my disbelief, but at the same time, I was like, all right, like, you know what? If the movie goes somewhere really good from here, fuck it. I'm on board. But if it doesn't, I'm going to come back and I'm going to talk shit about this. So that's kind of how I was feeling in the moment. I was like, if you go in a good place from here, I'm going to forgive it. If you don't, I'm going to nail you to the wall. So, but anyway, it's not that big of a deal. But so that's kind of the setup. You know, the humans have this going on. And they also have this like aqua life project where they're, you know, they're raising fish, dolphins, and stuff like that to feed the monsters. Dolphins. They show Rodan eating a dolphin. I was so sad. They also have the UNSC is running all of this. And I believe that they didn't really explain what it stood for in the movie. If they did, I missed it. I think it stands for United Nations Space Coalition. I could be wrong. So at the same time that they have this going on, they also have these astronauts on the moon who are, you know, doing some stuff on the moon. You know, I don't know what they're doing on the moon. They're studying some stuff on the moon. And this is where we kind of get into some of our main characters. So we have Dr. Otani, who seems to be like the lead researcher at the Monsterland. And then you have a girl named Kyoko, and she has been called there to study the monsters and study Godzilla and stuff like that. The main astronaut is Katsuo, who has a relationship with Kyoko. But you know what, guys, I feel like I don't know if there was anything going on with the translation here, but a lot of things were never really made clear to me. I'm not sure what Kyoko and Katsuo's relationship was. I'm not sure if they were brother sister or if they're lovers. It was never really, made totally clear to me. Or if it was, maybe it was made clear at a moment where I was focused on something else. But Katsuo's an astronaut on the moon base. Kyoko is, clearly a girlfriend of his. We'll say that. Literally a girlfriend, because I don't know what their relationship is. And then you also have Dr. Yoshida, who seems like, he's working very closely with the United Nations Space Coalition. They've called him away. He's working with them on something. He seems higher above maybe everybody, but he is not at Monsterland when the movie begins. So Kyoko's there to study the monsters. At this point, there is a command center underground on Monster Island where they're keeping the monsters in check and monitoring the monsters. Kyoko goes there to study them. All of a sudden, there's a gas attack. Gas starts pouring in to this facility from all directions. People start passing out. They gas the monsters, and this is basically the alien takeover. The aliens take over this base, and they've gassed the monsters. They take over the monsters, and let me see. This is where I wrote here, I don't understand the cinematography decisions around zooming in on the miniature sets and the drawings because they just looked so bad. Dr. Yoshida is basically, Katsuo's on the moon. Dr. Otani and Kyoko are, on the base when this attack happens. So they're down. Dr. Yoshida's leading the investigation. All of a sudden, the monsters just start attacking the world. For instance, Rodan is attacking Moscow. Manda is attacking London. I think Mothra was attacking Beijing. Godzilla attacks New York, which I thought was really cool. I didn't know that we had Godzilla attacking New York this early in the franchise. So this is his first interaction with New York, which of course we know Godzilla's going to go on to have a long relationship with New York. He does have his blue breath. The plates on his back are flashing blue when he uses the breath. He also has that curve back. So in some movies he shoots his breath straight, and in some movies he shoots his breath, and for whatever reason he's able to curve his atomic breath. In this one you get the curve. For some reason, and they make a big deal about this, Tokyo is not attacked. Anyway, we go back to the moon, and the astronauts on the moon are out exploring. They see a UFO and they want to chase this UFO, but they are called back to base because Earth is calling these astronauts from the moon back to Earth to go to Monsterland and investigate what happened. I don't know why they wouldn't send in like the actual military. Like, it's really just 5 or 6 dudes on this ship that are exploring, that they're calling back to explore what could be a hostile takeover of the command center at Monsterland. I keep wanting to say Monster Island. It's just like 6 dudes with like pistols. A couple of them go in looking unarmed. But what's really funny is their outfits. I have to show you their outfits because they look just like the Minions. So the first time they're shown on screen, I wanted to take some pictures and videos to show you guys. This is what they look like the first time they're shown on screen. I immediately saw the Minions, guys. Look at this. And then when you see them from the front, like, tell me you don't see Minions. When you look at their outfits, like, that gave me a good laugh. But anyway, they go to explore the command base, and they run into the former staff. So they see Dr. Otani, they see Kyoko, who were there, at the beginning of the movie, helping run the base and helping research the monsters. They're of course acting funny, so there's some kind of mind control going on. They do this really crazy thing. They show. The first thing they do is they show Katsuo and the other astronauts all the monsters that they're controlling just killing people on planes, killing people. Hold on one second. I have my cat's going crazy outside. Give me 1 second. Come on in. Sorry, I do all of this in one take, and I do not have time to edit it. So you will just have to know that. But yeah, my cat is upset. What is it, son? Here, I'll show you. Come here. Since you wanna be the center of attention. So this is what's up. What is it? Here you go, buddy. And the other cat's in the other cat's using the litter box right now. God. The cats are taking over my Godzilla review. Anyway, I can stay focused. So they show the astronauts all these videos of like Mothra, Rodan, and Godzilla just murdering everybody, and they tell them, "Hey, we're controlling the monsters right now, and we can stop this any moment. Anyway, we want to introduce you to the leader of the aliens, which are the Kilak. That's what they're called. And the leader." Now here's the other cat. And I don't have my. Anyway, this is the other cat. Hey, girl, come here, sweetie. So here's New. Hey. So you can take a look at her. Neither one of them want to be held right now. They just wanna be in my Godzilla review. I'm sorry, I didn't even have the mic up to my face. I was thrown off for a minute. Anyway, so they introduced them, our heroes or whatever, to the leader of the aliens. I'm not doing this over. This is just what it is. And the leader of the aliens, who, by the way, is this woman that is dressed in like, do I have a picture of it? Yeah, you can see her here. This is the leader of the aliens. She's just completely dressed in like aluminum foil for some reason. Like, that's her outfit. I know it's not the best picture, but like that's what it is. Let me see, what was her demand again? God, these aliens are from an asteroid between Mars and Jupiter. They're a tech-based civilization, and they basically say that they want to start a new civilization on Earth, and as long as Earth agrees to it, they'll get the monsters to back down. I think it's really funny that they showed the monsters like killing all of these human beings, and then they say, okay, now we want you to work with us. That was so weird to me. And then what's even weirder is one of the astronauts who, these astronauts have guns, by the way. They just, they have them holstered. He runs up to randomly attack the woman, the leader of the aliens. And his way of attacking her, he gets blocked by like a shield. She's got some kind of like shield on where you can't hit her, you can't shoot her or anything. But he doesn't try to shoot her. He doesn't even try to run up and punch her. He just tries to run up. And I mean, it almost kind of looks like he's trying to grab her boobs, man. Like, do you see this? Like, this is him getting electrocuted as he's trying to... Let me see if I can turn the brightness down. Maybe you guys can see it better. But, like... Yeah, like, he's... Like, what is this attack? What is this attack? He's just trying to get a handful. And that was his attack on the alien. I thought that was funny. This leads to a big shootout between the astronauts and the aliens, as the astronauts are trying to get Dr. Otani and Kyoko out of there. They're only able to get Dr. Otani out. Kyoko escapes. And also, this was crazy. During this firefight, like one of the aliens, well, no, one of the former staff members of the command base or whatever, who's being mind controlled gets shot in the stomach and dies. And then another one gets shot in the head. And I had to record this for you guys because it blew my mind. Because in Godzilla movies, I'm used to like the monster horror and people dying from the destruction. I do not associate Godzilla with gun violence. I just don't, you know, like it's one thing to have a shootout, but this is literally the first time I've ever seen a headshot in a Godzilla movie. And it's extra goofy with the acting. Here, I'll let you watch it. Right in the head, and then he just, like, what does that fall off to the side? Like, the acting on the headshot is what just really set it off for me. I just had to record little things like this to show you guys because it was just so goofy to me. But anyway, they get Dr. Otani out. And then they, you know, take him to like police headquarters where it turns out that Kyoko is actually, she escaped earlier. She's spying on the police headquarters, which is on a cliff above a beach, right? And so they keep asking Dr. Otani questions like, why are you doing this? What do the aliens want? He's acting somewhat normal, but he refuses to answer any questions. So at one point, the two investigators, who is like, it's like Dr. Yoshida and Katsuo, they kind of like stand up for a moment from the from the like interrogation, and they get distracted and they're kind of talking to themselves. And Dr. Otani gets up, and this is one of the goofiest scenes ever. Another goofy scene in a Godzilla. It's been back to back. He goes up to a window and he just jumps out. He just jumps out and kills himself, just jumps out. And when he jumps, they cut to the most obvious doll I've ever seen. I'm going to actually unmute this, and I don't know if you'll be able to hear it or not, but it's, you know, it's crazy. So he just gets up. He just goes over to a window, opens it, and this dude just jumps out. Look at that doll, dude. And then they cut to him on the ground. But the doll, man. The doll just really got me, man. Look at this. And then the scream. You know, there's something about that that's so bad it's good. You know, like that's just beautiful and awful and beautiful. So anyway, he lands on the beach. I thought he was dead, but he's not. Dr. Yoshida and Katsuo run down there to check on him. Kyoko appears with some of the aliens or some of their henchmen. I'm not really sure. We have another gunfight. And let me see. It turns out at this point, I guess like during the gunfight, Otani and Yoshida, I think, get away. I think that the Japan's like secret police for some reason show up and chase Kyoko and the other aliens off, and they have their own little gunfight back and forth. With Otani injured, they check him over and they realize that he has a receiver like literally embedded behind his ear. He has a receiver embedded behind his ear. So they discover that. They investigate that. They realize that this is how the aliens are controlling all the monsters. They've got these same receivers planted all around the world, and these receivers are how they are giving orders to all of the monsters to attack all of the different major cities in the world, again, except for Tokyo. So while they're discussing this, all of a sudden you do get a great scene, by the way, here. You get monsters attacking. Actually, I think at this point, an alarm goes off in Tokyo when they discover this, and this is the first time that the monsters attack Tokyo. And I think you have like 3 monsters. I think it's like Godzilla, Mothra, and maybe Manda, or Godzilla, Rodan, and Manda. Anyway, several monsters converge on Tokyo and destroy it. And I gotta say, really, really good destruction, really good music. But I remember thinking, this is a little bit late. Like, we're how long? We're 34 minutes into this of me just talking about it. It took way too long to get to these scenes that we really wanted to see of the monsters, like really good destruction scenes. But we do get them. Tokyo gets destroyed. Then Kyoko appears at the Joint Defense Command Center, where you have Ketsuo and Dr. Yoshida and like these other like government officials, I guess. Kyoko appears, and she says that she is there on behalf of the aliens to offer a deal. The aliens want to negotiate peace, and Katsuo is having no part of it, and so he randomly like grabs Kyoko and wrestles her to the ground and rips her earrings like out of her earlobes, and he's like, this is how the aliens were controlling her. He felt around, he couldn't find anything on her, he couldn't find any embedded receiver. So I mean, like, I just don't know how he knew, or how, like, I mean, it's just a guess, right? He rips her earrings off. Which I forgot to go back earlier in the film to see if she was wearing those earrings the whole time. But he rips her earrings out of her earlobes, which looked extremely painful, and says, this is how the aliens were controlling her. He ends up being right. Unfortunately, when they're trying to interrogate her for more information about the aliens, she doesn't remember anything after being implanted with the receiver. At this point, you have the military confronting Godzilla and Anguirus. Military fights Godzilla and Anguirus. Godzilla and Anguirus stomp the shit out of the military. Pretty cool scene. A UFO appears around Mount Fuji. And basically, at some point, the humans figure out that the base of operations here is like, it's Mount Fuji. Katsuo is still out flying in the same rocket ship that he was on the moon with. They use this rocket ship throughout the movie. So you've got Katsuo and the other astronauts up, trying to help out with the military maneuvers, trying to help out with, the monsters, and trying to do reconnaissance and figure out what's going on with the aliens. And they figure out that the aliens, they just happen to run into another UFO, and they figure out the aliens' bases at Mount Fuji. They then go on to infiltrate that base. The Kilak appear. The aliens appear. They show their base and how large their base of operations is to the astronauts, and then they say, this is our base here by the lava underground, Mount Fuji. This is where we're going to stay. Leave us alone and we can have peace. I honestly kind of felt like maybe, there's only like 12 of them. I was like, maybe that's not the worst thing in the world. But at the same time, you've killed a lot of people, so you got to go. The humans are able to determine that the way the monsters are, even though they have found a lot of the receivers, they still can't regain control of the monsters. They determined that from the moon, the Kilak have some kind of base on the moon where they're also controlling the monsters, where they're also sending a signal from the moon. So Katsuo and his buddies hop back in their ship. They go to the moon. They land on the moon, and they attack the base on the moon. There's actually a lot of like pretty good scenes here, and a lot of tension building scenes here, where they hold on one second. Where they're infiltrating the base. When they land their ship, they immediately, like, the Kilak start like bombarding the ship with fire. It's like 6 flamethrowers go off they land inside of a crater inside of the moon. They determine that like maybe inside of this crater there's a base. They land there. Flames start shooting at the ship from all directions. The ship is about to fucking explode. They get out of this situation by using a rover that's that's in the ship. So a compartment opens at the bottom of the rocket ship. Their rover comes out. They use a maser beam, which I don't know what that is. I don't know, maser beam, laser beam, whatever. They blow their way into the base. By doing so, they find out that the weakness for the aliens is temperature related. The aliens need to be in extremely high temperatures to like be conscious and be like appear in human form. As soon as the temperature drops when they blow their way into the base, the aliens all turn into these weird looking slugs, and then they slide inside of these like metallic rocks and then basically hibernate. Okay. They try to explain this with some other lore in the film, but it's just made up nonsense with nothing to really back it up. But okay, the aliens are slugs that have evolved over thousands of years. They have the potential to live maybe forever as long as they're in the heat, which is why they wanted their base under Mount Fuji near the lava. Okay, fine. So the signal is stopped. The monsters are no longer under control by the aliens. The humans are able to regain control of the monsters, which I guess this was kind of not very clear before. Like, I knew that the humans were keeping the monsters from leaving the island, but the humans also seem to have the ability to now control the monsters. I don't know if they're using some of the alien technology. A lot was happening, and we're getting a ton of cuts from the moon to Kyoko to Mount Fuji to 11 different monsters. So, I'm sorry if I can't keep up with everything. But the monsters are under control. The monsters are going to go destroy the alien base. So the monsters go to the alien base at Mount Fuji to destroy the base here on Earth. The base that was destroyed on the moon is on the moon. We have a base here on Earth. This is still where like the alien leader is. So we send all the monsters there to attack the base of Mount Fuji and destroy the aliens for good. This is actually a pretty cool scene. It's kind of funny. It's a little anthropomorphic, but it's good. Godzilla. I kept thinking, like, they show the human beings waiting at the base of Mount Fuji, and they're like, okay, like, the monsters are coming. They've been ordered to come here and help. Which monster do you think is going to show up first out of the 11 monsters? Which one's going to be the first monster to show up? Well, what's your guess? Like, which one of the monsters do you think would show up first? Maybe the one that flies at supersonic like speed at like Mach 5 or whatever. I was expecting Rodan to show up first. Godzilla shows up first with Manila. Ugh, I don't know why. I don't know why they decided to keep Manila. I wish they would have just retconned that in this film. I just wish they would have. But they kept Manila. Manila has like 2 minutes of screen time. But he's here, still looks the same, gross, but whatever. Godzilla and Manila show up first. Don't you know Rodan shows up last? Even fucking Kumanga, they bring Kumanga back. Do you know the spider from Son of Godzilla? The spider made it there before the supersonic fucking pterodactyl. So anyway, I just felt like they were trolling me when I saw that. Rodan shows up last. Then the monsters all get in a line behind Godzilla, and Godzilla's like, all right, and he's like they're getting hyped up, and the humans are talking. They're like, oh, Godzilla's strategizing right now. They're strategizing where, their point of attack and what tactics they're going to use. And Godzilla's like getting hyped up and like looking at the mountain. It was kind of like, I prefer in these movies when the monsters are monsters, but occasionally you get a hint of some sort of emotion or a hint of some sort of like humanity or idea, or thought process. But it is a little bit hokey to me when the monsters just go all out acting like people. But I get that this was for fun, and it was fun, so I'm not like taking points off for it or anything like that. The monsters go to attack the base. Now this is where they got me. We're here at the end of the movie. All of the sudden, Ghidorah appears. Like there's a spark in the sky, and they show footage from like, Ghidorah the three-headed monster or Invasion of Astro Monster. I'm not sure which film, but this is obviously stock footage of Ghidorah appearing. And I had no idea that Ghidorah was in this film. I didn't look at the box art. I didn't look at anything. All of a sudden, I'm like, holy shit, Ghidorah's here. So we're going to have Ghidorah 1v11, which, like, Okay, so when Ghidorah appeared, I was hyped. I was like, holy shit, like, okay, like, let's fucking go. Like, maybe they're gonna have Ghidorah, like, on steroids. Like, maybe this is gonna be, you know, because they've beaten Ghidorah twice. They've never killed Ghidorah. Ghidorah's here. Like, this is gonna be the one. Ghidorah lands, you know, directly, like, no strategy. Ghidorah lands literally in the center, surrounded, chooses. Like, Ghidorah has 3 heads and somehow only 1 brain cell. Like, 2 of those heads must have no brain cells. 1 has 1. That's it. Because Ghidorah chooses to land in the middle of all 11 monsters. To Ghidorah's credit, Ghidorah does start kicking ass. You know, shooting the lightning, knocking some of the monsters around. Anguirus, surprisingly, ends up being the first monster to really attack Ghidorah, and they have like a nice section where basically Anguirus bites one of the heads, and so Ghidorah takes off flying away from everybody. Anguirus doesn't let go because Anguirus is dumb, and so Anguirus hangs on. Ghidorah flies up super high. One of the other heads bites Anguirus. Anguirus lets go. Anguirus falls, you know, back first. Long fall, lands, explosion, and you're like, holy shit, I don't know if Anguirus lives or not. Then there's kind of like a fucked up scene after that. Anguirus starts to get up, and Ghidorah lands on Anguirus's back and just starts kind of like jumping on Anguirus's back. 1 foot on the back of Anguirus's neck, the other foot on Anguirus's back. And it looks like breaks Anguirus's, like just stomps him down and crushes him. And it looks like he breaks his neck. And I thought Anguirus was dead. And I was like, holy shit, you know? But Anguirus does, you know, later on get up and start moving again and rejoin the fight. But man, that shit looked rough. But after that, you know, Ghidorah gets back into the fight. And, you know, Ghidorah has had its moments. You know, it shoots its breath. Mothra, fucking... Like, again, I don't know why it's this larva stage Mothra, but Mothra just goes fucking flying again. But then they just start beat the shit out of Ghidorah. I think they beat Ghidorah to death in this one. I don't know if it's 100% confirmed, but they beat the dog shit out of Ghidorah. They beat Ghidorah to death. I mean, Godzilla's on his back beating the shit out of him. You know, Gordosaurus is biting Ghidorah's tail. Kubanga and Mothra are shooting the silk at Ghidorah, which does nothing, by the way. They just didn't have anything else for those two to do. I don't know why the spider didn't bite him or shoot him with the poison, but whatever. Anguirus rejoins the fight, starts biting the other head. The other head's bleeding. They knock. I think it's Gorosaurus does Godzilla's jump kick. He does Godzilla's like jump up kind of on the tail and does the front kick. Also, Baragon appears multiple times in this movie for like 2 seconds each, and for some reason is flying. Baragon can fly? I don't remember that. He doesn't have any kind of wings or anything. He just does he just flies like Superman. Like they show him multiple times and he's just in the background flying or floating. I don't know. This is just weird. I mean, I'm glad he got to be in the movie, but it was weird. Anyway, Gorosaurus, I believe, does the jump kick and knocks Ghidorah face down, and then Godzilla just starts stomping on Ghidorah's heads. And, you know, Anguirus is biting the other head, and they just beat the fucking shit. I mean, Godzilla even picks up one of Ghidorah's heads and starts, like, stretching it open like this. I think, like, is he going to do the kiss of death, you know, or just rip its head open, you know? But he ends up just throwing his head back down and bouncing it off the ground, and blood is shooting out of Ghidorah's mouths and stuff. Like, they beat the brakes off King Ghidorah. Holy shit. So I'm pretty sure they beat Ghidorah to death. And then all of a sudden, a flaming monster appears. Now, this is so disappointing. After Ghidorah appears, I'm like, holy shit, I didn't see that coming. Okay, like, now give me something. And it does. It gives you a fight. I don't know that it's necessarily the best fight. I mean, it's 11v1. So, Ghidorah did his best, but it's 11v1, bro. Like, I don't know what you expected Ghidorah to do alone. So anyway, all of a sudden another monster appears, and it's just like a CGI, like phoenix looking. It's just a flame. It's a flaming bird shaped thing, but it's just flames flying through the air. And they say that it's the fire dragon. That's what the aliens call it, our fire dragon. The fire dragon starts flying around, and I think there's even a battle sequence where the fire dragon is chasing the astronaut's ship, or you know what, that's Rodan. But I think the fire dragon also had a showdown with the ship. Anyway, the ship got away from Rodan by flying into space, and Rodan didn't want to go to space. And then the fire dragon, they end up like shooting it with like some kind of cooling rocket that cools it off. Anyway, before I get into that, before this happens, the flaming monster fire dragon destroys the monster control station. So now nobody has control of the monsters anymore. Nobody has control of the monsters. So all the monsters are free to do whatever the fuck they want. But the monsters decide to attack the aliens anyway, which was pretty cool. Got to give points for this. The monsters have complete freedom to do whatever they want, and they're like, nah, we're still fuck these aliens. So they still attack the base and fucking wipe the aliens out, which was cool as shit. And then the disappointing thing is, I'm looking at this fire dragon, and I'm like, okay, is this Gigan? Like, I don't think Gigan shows up here. Like, what monster is this? And I'm like, what monster is this? And I'm like, they got one last thing up their sleeve, for the final Godzilla movie. Okay, what's it gonna be? It ends up just being one of their ships. Like, after they shoot the coolant at the flaming dragon, it's just another standard one of their UFO drones, and they just shoot it down and destroy it. And that's it. That's all it was. Just another UFO drone that looked like a monster, like a flaming dragon, CGI flames flying through the air. It's just one of their ships. Such a bummer. So disappointing, and I just completely disagree. I completely disagree with bringing in what looks like a surprise monster only to disappoint audiences by saying, oh, it's just another one of their alien ships. Like, just a huge unnecessary L, in my opinion. Super disappointing. They shoot it down. Then they do, the base is destroyed. The aliens are destroyed. They all go back into their little hibernation rocks as little slugs. And then it shows all the monsters on Monsterland. And all the monsters are back on Monsterland, and they're super happy. And the end. Man, I had really high hopes for this movie. And I normally try to go into these films with not really any specific expectations, but I'm guilty. I'm guilty. I had expectations for this. I had higher expectations for this film. I was hoping, if this is going to be your last one, if this is going to be the one where the plan was we're giving Ishiro Honda the reins one last time. Let's bring it home. To me, like I said, when we were talking about the Rotten Tomatoes, I'm much closer to this. I'm much closer to this rating right here than this rating right here, to be honest with you. It just did not. To me, it wasn't really special. There was nothing really special about this. Seeing Ghidorah again was great. And I had been wondering in the previous films, like, when are they actually going to go all the way and kill Ghidorah? Maybe I'm wrong. It looked like they beat Ghidorah to death. It looked like Ghidorah died, but I could be wrong. This was a sad way to do it, drop him down into an 11v1, and he has his moments, and it looks like he beats up Anguirus pretty bad. And then he just gets the shit beat out of him. Fuck, I feel like they were going for the comic book, like almost like a Marvel movie, like Avengers. They like the big monster team up. You know what? Me as a Godzilla fan personally, that's not what I want to see. Even as the final Godzilla, even if it's the final Godzilla movie, I don't mind cameos of other monsters. I think that's cool. I think it's cool to give them cameo appearances. But if this is the final Godzilla movie, I mean, it's titled "Destroy All Monsters." It's Godzilla's not even in the title. You know what I mean? Like, I would have rather this wrapped up closer to the way that it began. And if you wanted Godzilla to be the good guy when in the final movie, give him a 1v1 versus King Ghidorah. That's what I would have done. I would have given him a 1v1 where it looks like he's outmatched. There's no way that he can possibly win it. And maybe the humans help him win. Maybe, at the last minute when it looks like maybe Ghidorah might kill Godzilla and Geras and Mothra show up, or Rodan or something. Maybe do it that way. But I would have made it 1v1 Ghidorah versus Godzilla, because previously it's only been, I think it's only been team-ups, right? It's only like in Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster and in Invasion of Astro Monster, you had team-ups versus Ghidorah. I don't think we've seen a 1v1, obviously, because in a 1v1, the implication is that Ghidorah would beat Godzilla. Well, this is when I would have teased it, the death of Godzilla being killed by Ghidorah. Imagine being in the theater and, thinking maybe this is the last Godzilla movie, and then you see Ghidorah about to get the killing blow on Godzilla. I would have been freaking out, and then maybe, Godzilla rallies. Maybe for the first time we get a different color breath, like the red breath or something. Or then you have like Mothra or Rodan come in, save the day, and then you have one last showdown of the boys versus Ghidorah. The way that it was handled, I just, it feels dirty to go back 40, 50, 60 years and criticize the decisions they made then, because there could be so many different reasons for why Ishiro Honda, and the special effects team made decisions. The music was perfect. The music was pretty much perfect. I will say that. I did like the soundtrack that Jun used, in Ibira and Son of Godzilla. I will say I thought his music, especially in Ibira, I thought his music was good. I liked it. It was very different. I liked it. But the music here, Akira really brought it. But it just did not live up really to any of my expectations. It's not how I would have done things. I feel like it's wrong to criticize it too harshly, because I have no idea, what kind of studio politics could have been going on. A lot could have gone into this, where their budget was allowed to go, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But for me, yeah, this is probably like a 5 or a 6 out of 10 for me in Godzilla movies. It's just not a very memorable one, The monsters being pawns on a chessboard between these boring ass aliens and these, forgettable human characters. It just makes for a forgettable film. It makes for, it's just not a good mix, in my opinion. The aliens weren't very interesting and looked goofy. There's, the human characters, like I said, were forgettable. There was not, you've always had some sort of human drama in the Godzilla films, and in some movies it's more effective than in others, right? Like a love drama, Namikawa and Glenn. Of course, in the original with Dr. Serizawa and that bit of a 3-way love triangle they had there. It doesn't have to be a love story, but there just wasn't, to me, really anything here that made anybody stand out that much to me, although I really liked the Godzilla suit. And that's about it, It was, I would say, very mid, if you will. Very middle, of the Showa era. This is probably very middle, maybe my 4th most liked film. I don't know if I'll do a video ranking the Showa era. Maybe I will. That might be kind of interesting to do when I finish it. I don't know if this is technically the end of the Showa era, but anyway, that's my thoughts on the film. Is this the end of the Showa era? What is the next Godzilla film? Let's find out real quick what we've got to look forward to. I think the Showa era ends with Terra of Mechagodzilla. Yes, it does. It ends with Terra of Mechagodzilla. The next movie is All Monsters Attack, and this is the next year. Oh, Godzilla's Revenge. Okay. Here we go. Here we fucking go. I have a feeling that when I watch this, I'm going to be missing Destroy All Monsters, like terribly missing it. So Godzilla's Revenge is next, comes out the very next year. I don't know who directed it. God. But anyway. Yeah, it's the first 15 films are the Showa era. So anyway. Listen, I remember thinking Godzilla's Revenge was terrible when I was a kid. I would watch it if I just desperately needed a palate cleanser because I had been watching, Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla too many times or something. So, anyway, I'll see you soon for Godzilla's Revenge. And I'll think about whether or not I want to rank all the Showa era films. I'm going to try to pump out more videos. I've been on vacation for 2 weeks, so I'm behind on movies, so I'm going to try to pump out these reviews a little bit quicker. Sorry this one was so long. If you like it, like and subscribe. Check out the other films on the channel, the other reviews. I'll see you for Godzilla's Revenge real soon. Bye, guys.